The base is dropped on Monday of MLS Cup week, ladies and gentlemen. Soccer Down here, Monday, December 3rd. Getting ready for Saturday's MLS Cup. Getting ready for other things, too, like a Concacaf Champions League draw that will take place tonight. We'll get into the particulars of that and how it's all going to work. It is a little complicated. It's Concacaf. We're not exactly surprised by this, but we'll try to prepare you for it because it's a little weird. Also, the U.S. men's national team has a manager. Finally, it's official. We'll get into that. We'll get into some of the details about the search. Paul Tenorio had a great piece at The Athletic that we'll dig into a little bit. But we'll also be taking your overreactions on a Monday because that's what we do on Overreaction Monday. Tweet at us using that hashtag @SoccerDownHere. I'm Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith alongside. What's up, John? How are you?
Still trying to grapple with the irony that for a second year in a row, the weather in mid-December is going to impact events here in the South. And
Hold up. We don't know that for sure. Even the weather people are saying things can change, and let's not start freaking out a full week ahead of time. Come on.
It is an Overreaction Monday.
Well, then I'm going to tell you your overreaction is stupid because we don't know yet. And it's not time to freak out yet. The weather this weekend was strange and nice and good and maybe a precursor to stuff getting bad and weird and ugly. It's early. Things can change. Yes. But, yeah, you might want to tentatively prepare for some interesting weather next weekend. Let's just leave it at that right now. Brad Nitz at WSB is not optimistic at the moment. So
we're not fans of that long-range forecast.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. It's long-range, which means it's not exactly entirely 100% accurate as these things do change. So, again, no freaking out just yet. Let's get into the U.S. men's national team right now. Since we finally have a manager, it's done. It's not any surprise. It is Greg Berhalter. News came out yesterday. Couple things came out afterwards, though. Paul Tenorio's article at The Athletic, he kind of dug into the process a little bit and had some feedback from Ernie Stewart about it. Let's get into this part, though. So when he was crafting the profile for the job, and, I mean, job description, essentially, requirements, what he's looking for, these types of things. Stewart spoke with 8 U.S. men's national team alumni when crafting the profile for the coaching job, according to U.S. Soccer, and this is from the Paul Tenorio article at The Athletic. All 8 had at least 100 caps and at least 5 appearances as captain. There's 11 people who fit that bill, not including Ernie Stewart. Landon Donovan, Michael Bradley, Clint Dempsey, Jeff Agus, DeMarcus Beasley, Tim Howard, Claudio Reyna, Josie Altidore, Carlos Bocanegra, Casey Keller, Tony Meola. 4 of them are still active: Bradley, Howard, Beasley, Altidore. So Ernie Stewart spoke to 8 of those 11 about what that could be. Stewart said about this, he said, "I felt getting the feedback of those who had contributed so much to the success of our national team in the past was important in helping to establish the profile. I didn't want it to be random either. The criteria I set for who I would reach out to was purposeful. There's no mistake with someone that played 100 times for their country or captained the national team on multiple occasions." Now, the main line of questioning for this group of 8 centered around 3 different ideas. Is it important to you to have an American manager, and why? Is it important to have a manager who understands CONCACAF, and why? And of the people you've heard mentioned for the position, would you be satisfied with any of those? Looking more at the pool of candidates, and I guess if anybody jumped out to this group of 8. From there, you went to 33 coaches that he felt fit the criteria, narrowed it down to 11 top candidates. This is where it's a little weird. It says after quote, conversations with candidates on that list, Stewart narrowed it down to the 2 finalists, and we know that Oscar Pareja was interviewed for the position as well as Berhalter. Thoughts on reading that, John? What did you think about the way now, after it's all done, and it did take a long time, after that now we have a little more clarity, at least to what was going on and what the thinking was behind that delay? Make you feel any better?
No, considering the length of time that it took to put all the pieces together, and then
so
the
it's just down
Q&A.
To the length of time for you.
Pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, because if Greg Berhalter was candidate A, candidate B, and Oscar Pareja was candidate C, then go ahead, do it, get it over with. The length of time, I think that what you've done is you stunted any opportunity to move things forward. And what you've done now, I mean, if you had named Greg Berhalter 6-9 months ago, 12 months ago, what have you?
You couldn't have done any of that. That's the whole thing about the process, though. And this is what I want to get back to is,
right.
Okay, we know that if you'd hired him in the summer, okay, well, then the crew would have had to figure something out, and that probably wouldn't have happened. He probably wouldn't have taken over until now anyway. If he's your guy, he's your guy. But
would he have not had input, though?
Well, maybe. I mean, we don't know. But the thing is, your argument here is basically like the process had nothing to do with it, and they shouldn't have even had the process. They should have just hired somebody. I feel a little bit better, and I'm not going to give them the complete out here because I still think it took way too long to get here. But the process makes sense to me. I'm okay with this, and that's not this process doesn't happen overnight. And let's go back to the beginning. You were never going to have a manager 12 months ago because you didn't have a president of U.S. Soccer who was going to stay in the job. So you were never going to have a manager at the end of 2017. You were never going to have a manager in early 2018 because Carlos Cordero came in with the number one focus of getting the World Cup bid secured. You weren't going to start the countdown to actually having a manager probably until late spring or so. Now, to me, it took too long to hire a general manager. That means this process took too long and everything got slowed down.
Agreed.
In a perfect world, you would have settled in on who you were going to hire 2-3 months ago. I mean, it's really only that much accelerated to me. And what would that have changed? It would have potentially had Berhalter's input on the player pool for the last couple of camps, probably October and November camps, if we want to be optimistic. Maybe September if you get it done really quick. Berhalter probably wouldn't have been involved in actual coaching of any of those camps, or definitely not the matches, but maybe he would have run a session or something in one of the camps. Maybe he would have met with the group at some of the camps. That's not a bad thing to do at all. That would have helped. That definitely would have helped. The process, the fact that there was a process, because we didn't know that, to be perfectly honest. We didn't know that this was going on. It is good to know. It doesn't take the pressure off of Greg Berhalter, though. And it doesn't take the fact that all of this length of time has added to the pressure on Greg Berhalter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, we'll get into Berhalter specifically in a minute. This is more about the process and the U.S. Soccer Federation part of it. The three things that Stewart wanted to talk to this group of 8 players who have had an enormous impact on the U.S. men's national team program. I'm good with the criteria of talking to these people. I'm good with 8 of the 11 names that Stewart talked to. I'm good with that. That's a good process to go through. I think that's a good thing. The questions, okay, is it important to have an American manager and why? Fair question. I would agree. I think national teams and having a manager from that country is a big topic of discussion, and it is something that does need to be worked through. Not every country is in the same situation. Not every country has to have a manager from that country. we've done both. And it's good to, I think, get the player's side or the former player's side of why that would be important. To me, that's not for you or I to decide on. To me, I want the best manager possible, but there is an element of understanding the culture of the players. Because I feel like if you don't, it's very difficult to motivate them and understand and get the best out of them. So I can see both sides here. I think the U.S. is honestly kind of in the middle of, are there good managers in the United States that can run this team? Yeah, absolutely. Could you potentially get a better choice of someone from outside the United States? You could. Are there people who are working in the United States who might not be American but understand the culture? Yes, there's that too. So I think you have a very wide range of potential managers in this, just regarding this question. I think there's a lot of different ways you could go, and there's not really a wrong answer, in my opinion.
No, I get it, and I understand question number one. So I know that in this day and age, folks take things probably a little too literally sometimes when they look at a question or look at written word. So, no, I get topic number one, and I understand why it was question one of three.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I think there are other countries who, have significant national teams who the pool of domestic candidates is not there. You're not going to be able to get a good enough manager domestically. There are others who, obviously, you can hire whoever you want. And should you go outside of the domestic pool? England went through that with Fabio Capello. That was a big shot to the system for them. So this doesn't just happen in the United States. I think sometimes that gets overblown a bit. Second question about understanding CONCACAF and how important that is. To me, that's kind of understood just because it's how you qualify. It's important, I think, to understand CONCACAF and how difficult it is. I'm a little surprised that this was one of three questions. I don't know. This one jumped out to me as kind of a duh.
Yeah, because if you don't understand the global implications of being the manager of the U.S. men's national team and wanting to play on the global stage, you have to understand things hemispherically first, or as a stepping stone to the whole thing.
Yeah, and I don't think Jurgen Klinsmann ever truly understood CONCACAF. I think his results in CONCACAF play showed that. I mean, he was very poor in elements of CONCACAF play that we had never been poor before. So I don't think he ever completely got it. Final one, just about the pool, and is there, would you be satisfied with any of the names out there? That's fine. That's a completely fine question. I'd love to know the process of going from 33 to 11 to 2. That would be very interesting, and something we'll probably never know. You got into some of the basics beyond this, getting this input. You got into some of the basics of, a USA license, a UEFA Pro license, the mechanics of it, the logistics of it. So you narrowed it down to Berhalter and Pareja. You hire Berhalter. It's done now, finally. So now we can move on. Columbus can move on. Columbus can start talking to potential managers, and there's news on that, and we'll get into that. I'd love to hear from people out there listening. Do you feel any better now that it's done and there is a manager in place with the U.S. men's national team? If you do, why? If you don't, why? Does the article from Tenorio help you understand the process a little bit more and give you any reason to give U.S. soccer a bit of a pass on how long it took? Love to hear your over, under, on par reactions during the break. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Berhalter specifically and some of the conversation around Greg Berhalter. And, at the end of the day, how successful is he going to be with the men's national team? Because I think we can all agree that there is a lot of pressure on him now. More pressure than he had in Columbus. More pressure than he would have had maybe if he had been hired in September and taking over now, because of all of this, because of where we are with the men's national team right now. It's not going to be easy for Greg Berhalter. let's talk about if he can be successful or not. We're going to take that break, come back, discuss it after this. Stay with us.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, December 3rd edition, Overreaction Monday. I'm sure there are some over and under and on par reactions about the Greg Berhalter hire for U.S. Soccer. Finally, it's done. There is a manager in place. It's only been 14 months or so since Bruce Arena failed in Trinidad. And, yeah, it's easy to say 14 months and get that reaction, but it's a fact. It's there. I mean, even if there are mitigating circumstances, and I feel like there are in this case, still, it's been forever, and it has had an effect. Before we move into Greg Berhalter specifically and tactics and will it work, won't it work, what will work, what to watch for, Jarrett, what's your thoughts on the Tenorio article at The Athletic and where he kind of dug into the process of everything and how we got here?
My whole thing with the whole process is that I figured there was a process, but the whole no leaks, we're just going to play everything as close to the vest as possible. Given what happened in Trinidad, I hated it. I mean, I understand you have your process and you don't want to just make everything public, but you had a fan base from the federation that wanted answers. They wanted some sort of transparency. It didn't have to be everything, but give them something. Turning this into, the NSA, I didn't like the move for the whole process. And it's just not a time where you can just tell people, just trust the process. And nope, they're not there right now. And I thought it was kind of tone deaf from U.S. Soccer. I hope Berhalter does well. I think he will do well. But I didn't like the whole way the whole process played out by U.S. Soccer, especially when you have a fan base ready to light the torches.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lack of discussion and the lack of clarity didn't help because of that, and that is a big issue because you had to know where the wind was blowing at this point, and it wasn't blowing anywhere good after losing to Trinidad and not qualifying for the World Cup. You had to know that the Federation has to know at this point that they had to do something to try to make this fan base feel a little bit better. And it felt like the longer it went, the less they understood how the fan base felt about anything. And their job's not technically to answer to the fan base, but, Throw people a bone once in a while. That'd be nice. Something just to make them feel a little bit better. Does the Berhalter hire make you feel better? Beyond the process, beyond the time it took, does Greg Berhalter being in charge of the U.S. men's national team make you feel better about where the men's national team will be in this next cycle? And this next cycle, for him, starts in January with a camp, mostly MLS players, maybe a few European-based players who are either not playing first-team soccer or are in a league that takes a winter break. The Gold Cup is going to be the first measuring stick. But, yeah, Jarrett, what do you feel better now that it's Greg Berhalter in charge of the men's national team? Do you think this is a positive development for the U.S. men's national team?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm fine with Berhalter for a while. I think we all knew it was pretty much done and dusted. It was, he was the golden child for this cycle. That's fine by me. I think he'll do fine with it. Yeah, I agree with what you said last segment about about Jurgen not understanding CONCACAF, because we've had that discussion before about, every region is different and not everybody understands every region. It's hard. You're hard pressed to ask people to come from Europe and qualify in CONCACAF or CONMEBOL. At the same time, you'd be hard pressed to ask somebody from CONMEBOL or CONCACAF to go qualify in Africa or UEFA or even the Asian Federation. Everyone has its quirks. I think Berhalter knows the region enough. I think he'll be fine. I'm cautiously optimistic, and it's not him that has me pessimistic in terms of his managerial ability. It's just that U.S. soccer has been such a mess, and I'm not ready to get hurt again, but I'm ready to try.
John, Greg Berhalter is in charge. People have talked about Berhalter's coaching ability for quite a while. He's been one of the more promising managers in MLS. He's done well with the Columbus team that hasn't had a huge budget. Do you think that's going to translate to the national team level?
I mean, I think that when you're in a situation like Berhalter's in Columbus, you learn to deal with what you have in front of you. And sometimes if you need to have an ace up your sleeve to help you out at the poker table, then, having that kind of mentality, I think helps, because you never know when you're going to need it. And if this is one of those times where, all right, I have this group of guys here that is with me and we're all working forward, then I think that being in Columbus definitely is going to help you in this situation, because you never know where something's going to come and hit you from. You might not have a player that you would have thought you had for one reason or another. Then you have to come up with a plan B. And I think that all of the times that Berhalter has had to have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, or try to pull that ace out, I think it definitely does help in this situation. And to Jared's point, I'm fine with this. There was a list of guys I was fine with. Berhalter is one of those guys. So now that the decision's been made, I want to see how he is when he's sitting there at the poker table.
Let's get into a little bit of plan B, plan C, plan D. Greg Berhalter pretty much primarily played out of a 4-2-3-1. One thing he had with Columbus that he doesn't have a like for like with the national team is Federico Higuain. Federico Higuain bailed Columbus out a lot of times when they needed something magic to happen. He was the one who provided it. You don't have a player like that. Now, is there one coming? I don't think so. I don't think there's a number 10 like that in the wings right now. So you're going to have something different there from Berhalter's plan A, which has been very predominant of a plan A. He's not a guy who's mixed and matched his shape very much. When we have seen him do that, he's had some success. He's had some struggles. Let's go back to the game at Red Bull Arena earlier this season where he plays a 4-4-2 diamond against the Red Bulls press, takes a 3-0 lead in the first half, ends up winning 3-2. Tactical masterpiece. Excellent work. He knew exactly how to bust the Red Bulls press, and he did it to great effect. And it was Patrick Mullins and Jossie Zardes who were your two up top who got it done. Last year, when the Crew had some struggles in the early portion of the season, he messed around with some different looks, tried some 3-5-2, tried some 3-6-1, tried some 3-3-1-3, some 3-3-3-1, tried a few different things. Never really found it. And the 2 times that Atlanta played the Crew last season in regular season play was during that period where it was kind of mixing and matching and flailing about a little bit. Berhalter took the Crew to an Eastern Conference final last year, took them to an MLS Cup in 2015. He's had success. But for me, the number one thing I keep coming back to is, okay, I think he has the 6 and the 8, or he can find the combination of the 6 and the 8 to replicate what he's had with Will Trapp and Artur. I think there's a ton of different 8s in the U.S. national team pool. 6, I mean, is he going to give Trapp that opportunity? Probably. He's probably going to give Trapp an opportunity to see if he can be that guy. I'm not convinced he can be. I'm not 100% convinced he can't be at this point either. I think the Will Trapp debate went from, oh, yeah, we really like him, and then now it's, oh, no, he can't play at this level in like 2 games, 2 friendlies. So let's hold on that one for a second. I think Trapp's going to get an opportunity here. I think there are other possibilities too. That's a key part of Columbus's system that I think he can replicate. I think the back line, getting the defenders to be able to play out of the back and hit those long passes that the Crew do a lot of, similar to what we see with Atlanta United. I think he'll be okay in that regard. The replacement for an Higuain in the system is the one that worries me, because you're going to have to do something different in that role, because you just don't have a player like Federico Higuain in the U.S. men's national team pool. And he's such an important part of the Crew's success in Berhalter's tenure. I'm curious to see what he does to overcome that one. Digging into some of those nuts and bolts, Jarrett, of system and looking at what he's done with Columbus, which you would expect would be his base, at least to start with the men's national team. What do you like? What worries you a little bit about the player pool matching up with Greg Berhalter's way of playing?
That number 10 question. How do you use a Pulisic in this? Do you ask him to be that guy who bails you out sometimes? Not the same way Higuain did, but to bail you out in general. But I still have questions about who plays left back in this team, in this pool right now. I like that we had the conversation, by the way, over the last 2 weeks of, man, would the U.S. soccer pool have been better with Michael Parkhurst over the last few years as a center back option, directing traffic instead of cycling 25,000 people. That's neither here nor there, though. But I actually like where the pool's going, and I think you'll have guys to choose from. And I think this is one of those things you talk about, you bring him in and you trust the process of recruiting. I think you also have to trust the process of him finding the guys that work for his system. He's been good at finding guys in Columbus, and sometimes shoestring budgets and finding the guys who fit. And he'll have a very talented, the most talented pool we've seen in America since I don't know when, of guys coming up. Young players, some hitting middle age, who middle of their prime, I guess, so mid-20s, and some guys who might be late bloomers, who I think he's going to be outside the box enough to say, I've got these guys I can do this, this, and this with, and we can try some different things and see what works and what doesn't. I think he's got a talented enough pool that he's going to be able to figure out at least one way to play, if not multiple ways to play, and multiple ways to deal with the challenges he's got. But I think we'll also be asking the questions, and I think we have to separate the question of whether it is or isn't that we do or don't blame him. When a guy doesn't live up to the standards we may have set.
It's gonna be, that's a tough one though. When you get down to, are you going to blame Berhalter if a player doesn't live up to the standards that we're expecting or we're hoping for? It depends on how he's used. And I think Christian Pulisic is going to be a very interesting conversation when it comes to the national team. because Matt Doyle has a very good piece at MLSsoccer.com about Berhalter's plan, and he raises some of these questions too. And I'm right there with him about this number 10 role, and especially Pulisic, because you can play Pulisic as the 10. Christian Pulisic does not play that role in any way similar to Federico Higuain. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But you're going to be asking right now the most gifted player you have to do something that is a little different than he does on a week-to-week basis at the club level. Now, that could change depending on what happens with his club future. But you're going to be putting him in a different situation, and if he doesn't deliver, now then I think it's a different conversation about, is that Pulisic's fault? Is that Berhalter's fault? Whose fault is it? And I'm fascinated to see how this goes down. I can't wait to see how this plays out. You're going to have the January camp, and I don't know if you'll get Pulisic featuring in that. You're going to have a March window where you'll get 2 games. And then you have the Gold Cup. And you'll have a couple of games ahead of the Gold Cup, but you're going to have a sense of this, and you're not going to be able to experiment too much until the games count. And the Gold Cup will absolutely count. People will be looking to see how the U.S. does in this tournament. And if it's not good, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty for Greg Berhalter. So I'm fascinated by it. It's very interesting. I think, to me, Berhalter's done a great job in MLS. Maybe the praise for Berhalter in MLS has been a little overblown. He hasn't won MLS Cup. He's been to 1. He's been very good. But is he going to be able to do that on the national team level? We'll have to wait and see, and we'll start to get answers to that next summer during the Gold Cup. I'd love to get your thoughts on Berhalter on national team. Send them our way on Twitter. We'll get into them as we go this morning. Next up, we're going to get into the Concacaf Champions League and the draw tonight from Miami to see who will face who in the round of 16. It's not going to be completely cut and dried as we get into it, and we'll try to explain it as best we can. It's CONCACAF at its CONCACAF-y best. We'll get into it on the other side. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, December 3rd edition. Talked national team. We've talked coaching. We'll get into that with everybody as well. But let's get into the Concacaf Champions League a little bit, because this is going to be an interesting night in the history of Atlanta United. I don't know how much clarity we're going to have at the end of it, though. We now know, for the most part, and we don't know exactly, the 16 teams that will be participating in the 2019 Concacaf Champions League. There is one remaining question that affects a spot for seeding and a spot for who's in, and that's MLS Cup on Saturday. If Atlanta United wins MLS Cup, they will be seeded as USA 1. That is for the MLS Cup winner of 2018. If they lose MLS Cup, they will go in as USA 4. That will be for the best record over the 2017-2018 season. And that's due to Toronto winning the 2017 MLS Cup. Toronto qualifies through Canadian competition, not MLS competition. That's where Atlanta can fall, USA 1 or USA 4. Portland or the Red Bulls are the other MLS team that gets in. Portland qualifies if they win MLS Cup. They would be USA 1 in that case. If Atlanta wins MLS Cup, the Red Bulls would get USA 4 as that best aggregate record from 2017 and 2018 of a team who is not already qualified. They would be second in that table behind Atlanta. Atlanta would qualify as MLS Cup winners. Red Bulls would be USA 4. One thing that makes it a little easier is both of those, USA 1, USA 4, both of those spots are in Pot 1. We know that Sporting Kansas City, as the 2017 Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup winners, will be in Pot 2. We know that the Houston Dynamo, as the 2018 Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup winners, will be in Pot 1. We know that Atlanta won't be in Pot 2, so they will be drawn against teams from Pot 2. CONCACAF has not made it clear as to how this is going to go down tonight. I am assuming, based off the way seeding works and the way all this is going to go, that they will pull USA 1 versus a Pot 2 team and USA 4 versus a Pot 2 team, not pull Atlanta United versus an opponent, because Atlanta could be in one of those two spots. They might go completely differently and pull Atlanta against a Pot 2 team and pull Portland/New York against a Pot 2 team. The way the tournament is structured and the way they've divided up the pots, they shouldn't do that. But, John, it's CONCACAF, so who knows?
Yes.
Anything
Yes.
can happen here.
Uh-huh.
I don't think we're going to know exactly who Atlanta will face until the end of the night on Saturday.
No. And in the 4 minutes of explanation of what we think versus what may happen versus any and all different variants for a Monday morning, 40 minutes in, my head was spinning. So that's good on you, Jason.
My head was spinning reading this stuff last night trying to get through it. I mean, that's
what I'm saying.
It's a little complicated because of the reworking of the Champions League format. That's adding to it here because of the 2017-2018 combined stuff and all that. That's making it more complicated than it will be going forward. But, yeah, the way these spots are seeded, you should be pulling the seed here as opposed to the team, because Atlanta could fall in one of two seeds. We'll have to wait and see. Pot 1, just so kind of coming in what we're looking at here. Pot 1 are the 4 Mexican qualifiers, and these are the 2017 Apertura champion and runner-up, 2018 Clausura champion and runner-up. It's Monterrey Tigres from 2017, Santos Laguna Toluca from 2018. Toronto FC won the 2018 Canadian Championship. They're in Pot 1. Houston is in Pot 1. Atlanta and either Portland or the Red Bulls are in Pot 1. Pot 2, we know Sporting Kansas City's there. And then you get into the Central American and the Caribbean qualifiers. Independiente from Panama won the 2018 Panamanian Clausura title, and they had the best aggregate record between the Apertura and Clausura champions, because Panama only gets one spot and they have 2 champions. You take the best record between the 2 champions. That's how Independiente from Panama gets in. It's their first time ever in the CONCACAF Champions League. Saprissa qualified out of Costa Rica. They won the 2018 Clausura. They had the better aggregate record between the 2 champs. Marathon from Honduras, same thing. They won the 2018 Clausura in Honduras. Better aggregate record between the two. Guatemala was a little weird because it's CONCACAF. Welcome to CONCACAF. That's what we do here. Guastatoya qualified. They won a playoff with Antigua GFC, who were the 2017 Apertura champions. Guastatoya won the 2018 Clausura. They had a playoff over 2 legs as opposed to the aggregate winner going through. There was something to do with Guatemala and regulations and FIFA and being suspended and then not being suspended, and here we go. That's CONCACAF for you. It's their first appearance in the CONCACAF Champions League. Alianza from El Salvador, they won the 2017 Apertura and the 2018 Clausura, so they go in easily. 2018 CONCACAF Caribbean Club Championship winners Atletico Pantoja from the Dominican Republic qualified. The Caribbean leagues do not get automatic qualifiers. They have to have a championship of their own between the country's winners. Pantoja won it. This is their first appearance in CONCACAF Champions League. And Herediano from Costa Rica won the 2018 CONCACAF League. Again, it's CONCACAF. They have to have another whole competition for teams that didn't automatically qualify for CONCACAF Champions League to play off for one more spot. That happened this fall. Herediano ended up winning the final. They get into the final spot in Pot 2. That's your Pot 2 teams. Atlanta United will be drawn with one of those teams except for Sporting Kansas City, because you can't draw a team from your own country in the round of 16. So they will be drawn with one of 7 teams, Central American or the Caribbean, Dominican Republic and Atletico Pantoja. That's what we know. That's where we're at. Jarrett, are you still with us? Jarrett might have thrown things.
I think his head hurts.
Oh, man. Yeah, my head hurts. It's Monday morning.
It's a big Monday morning, Jarrett. It's CONCACAF Champions League, and Atlanta could be going places and playing people, and it could be crazy.
Get your passport ready.
Man. Look, this is one of the reasons European clubs couldn't play in CONCACAF. I don't know if they could do the math. We can't do the math half the time.
I would love to see Manchester United in a must-win game against Marathon in Honduras. That would be amazing.
Saprissa?
Saprisa's child's play compared to some of these, dude.
Again, this is why, and we went over this. This is why Atlanta United is so well suited for this.
It's true.
You got guys like LGP and Remedi and Tito Villalba. As I had the discussion with somebody last night, the Falcons need some fire. I was like, what? The Falcons hire Tito? Tito grew up in a neighborhood to make half these guys blush.
If you were wondering about Atlanta United's CONCACAF pedigree for Champions League, go back and watch the game at Red Bull Arena about 2 more times, and you'll see that they're going to be just fine when it comes to CONCACAF Champions League. That was as Champions League of a performance as you will see. It'll be chippy. It'll be nasty at times. It'll be ugly. It'll be difficult. You could be playing on a field with half dirt, half grass. Anything can happen in these games. The level
and usually does.
Yes. The level of gamesmanship is the nice way to put it that takes place in these games. Whew.
Getting after it.
The level of tomfoolery.
Getting after it. Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Getting after it is something you do on a high school football field in Albany. That doesn't even qualify for what's going to happen in El Salvador in a CONCACAF Champions League game.
Right next to the Atlanta United's training ground, they just tore down a shopping center on Franklin Gateway. Just flattened it out. Now it's just a parking lot. They might just train out there to get ready for when they have to go on the road. Because it's uneven gravel at this point.
You might need to, depending on what's going on. And once we know who they could be matched up with, we'll dig into a little bit more about the team and the players and that. Don't think it's just about, oh, it's going to be tough to play in, oh, it's going to be a tough crowd, oh, it's going to be a bad field. You have talent in these teams. Saprissa has been to the Club World Cup before, and they're a very proud club. Marathon is a very proud club out of Honduras, one of the giants of Honduras. Alianza, giant of El Salvador. They've dominated Salvador in play. Herediano is another big team in Costa Rica. Now, mixed with those, you have some teams who are making their first appearance here. You don't think they're going to be motivated? You don't think you're going to see some strong play out of these clubs? And let's remember, like a club like Independiente out of Panama, not a Panamanian club we've seen at this level before. Panama and the development that has gone on there in the game over the last decade is pretty amazing, to be honest. This was a country that they didn't qualify for the Hex. They were nothing in the Concacaf Gold Cup, nowhere near World Cup slots, not that long ago. And now you've had money pumped into soccer in that country. You've had infrastructure built in terms of stadiums. You have clubs developing talent. The Dele Valdez brothers, who were great players in Panama, the first really great players out of the country, put in a huge amount of time on the youth national team level to develop talent. And you saw a guy like Blas Perez, who just retired. Blas Perez was an amazing player in Major League Soccer. Don't tell me that there aren't players with Independiente in Panama that we don't know yet that you might see come to MLS after this tournament because of what they do here. There's going to be talent along with all of the gamesmanship, along with the potential for playing on a bad pitch, playing in difficult situations. All those things will be there, but you're going to have talent to deal with too, and talent that you probably have never seen before. Not going to be a lot of tape. Not going to be a lot of scouting done on this. It's going to be tough, and you're going to be doing it when they are more in season than you, because these are going to be your first competitive games in 2019 with a new manager. It's not going to be easy, even with Pot 1 versus Pot 2 and the differences in level and the differences in resources. You know, Jarrett, these are not going to be easy matchups for Atlanta United when you get into CONCACAF.
No, they're not, and they're not going to be easy. They're going to be more chaotic when you get into the season. You know, when you have to play.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You got to get out of the first round first, yeah.
If you get out, then you have to balance that with regular season and say the same thing we said in March and April of this year. If Atlanta United makes it out of that first round, season be damned. Go win a CONCACAF Champions League trophy. I don't care if you exit CONCACAF in second to last place.
That's the nature of playoffs in MLS. You have that ability to not punt on early games, because I don't think Atlanta United will be in that situation. Not with what we saw out of Atlanta United 2, not with the depth of talent that you will have to work with. You can get some results in early MLS games. But yeah, I agree. I think you make CONCACAF the priority at the very beginning. If you get a chance in the quarterfinals to be drawn with any of the Mexican teams, Monterrey, Tigres, Santos Laguna, Toluca, it's going to be a lot of fun, especially if it's Monterrey or Tigres, who are big clubs. Santos Laguna, Toluca, not quite as big. Toluca, that's going to be one of the craziest places to play if that draw happens. That stadium, I believe it is Estadio Nemesio Diaz, an amazing little venue. It's one of my favorite stadiums in Mexico, one of my favorite stadiums in CONCACAF. An amazing little bandbox of a stadium. Fans are like almost right on top of you. It'll be special if you get that draw. But you do avoid, and this is something to keep in mind if you're Atlanta United, no Club America, no Chivas. Monterrey and Tigres are big clubs, but you kind of get lucky to not see some of the big heavyweights. No Cruz Azul, another big one. There's a good path here. There's a very good path here. Now, you got to take care of business, and you got to win a round of 16 over 2 legs. You got to win a quarterfinal over a round of 2 legs. You got to win a semifinal over 2 legs. You got to win a final over 2 legs. It's 8 games. You get through those 8 games, you're going to the FIFA Club World Cup, and you're the first MLS team to do it. That's a pretty special prize at the end of that journey if you can do it. And that journey will start tonight. We'll know at least one of 2 teams that Atlanta United could face. If CONCACAF does the draw that we think they'll do, It's CONCACAF. They could do whatever, and we might know who they're facing. They might change the rules between now and the time the draw happens. Anything can happen. I think one time they actually messed up the draw and had to do it again, like on TV, on the draw. They're like, oops, we messed up. I think that happened once a few years ago. So it'll be crazy. Tonight, if you are wanting to follow this and you're not able to watch on Univision Deportes, soccer over there at 7 o'clock will transform into soccer down there / over here.
Around here.
Somewhere, and we'll get into it as it happens. So Nick Alifi will be on with us as well. Show starts at 6:30, normal soccer over there, topics, and then at 7 o'clock we'll get into the CONCACAF draw and keep you posted on how everything's going and what CONCACAF is doing, because that could be a show in and of itself. We're going to take a break, come back and wrap up hour number 1 after this. Stay with us.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, wrapping up hour number 1 on an Overreaction Monday, kicking off MLS Cup week. We've had Greg Berhalter discussion. We've had Concacaf Champions League discussion, and we think we've made sense of Concacaf Champions League. If we haven't, we blame Concacaf. We've tried.
Yes.
We put in a lot of effort here. John, do we have a question to finish off hour 1 before we jump into more on an Overreaction Monday in hour number 2?
Sure, let's go Katie Weaver. A friend and I were talking, #USMNT, and he thinks the Red Bull style could be a good blueprint for this crop of players. I tend to agree. Can Berhalter get behind and orchestrate that kind of system? #Overreaction Monday.
Second part, we don't know because we haven't seen him do it. So I couldn't tell you for sure. We've seen the crew press a little bit. I mean, it's different to press a little bit and to do what the Red Bulls do. There's also questions on if that would be the way to go. I mean, Christian Dyer at The Athletic had an article after the Red Bulls lost saying, well, they need some game changers. And the thing is, you can't really do both. It's hard to have both. It's hard to have special game-changing players. See, Gwen's with me on this. It's hard to have that if you're going to be asking those game-changing players to press and run and sacrifice in that system. Normally, your game-changing players don't want to do that. Columbus didn't do that because of Federico Higuain. You're not going to have him run around chasing people. You want him on the ball in special moments and to be able to influence the game, and he did. I'm honestly not a fan of that for the national team. Now, there's a bigger question here. And I think Doyle got into it and opened the door in a pretty good way in his article at MLSsoccer.com. Think back to recent national teams that have had success. Let's get past the Spain bit where everybody wanted to play like Spain between 2008 and 2012 when they won the Euros, they won the World Cup. Everybody wanted to be possession. Everybody wanted to play that way. So everybody tried. Not everybody can do that. Now, what have we seen lately? A lot of countering, a lot of defense first, not really much of that possession style. Now, Berhalter's a possession guy. The crew have always been possession-based. Or is he going to be able to adjust to what the international game is right now? And then you get into that contest that we've talked about with the Red Bulls, where it's, okay, I don't want the ball. No, I don't want the ball. No, I don't want the ball. Can the U.S. thrive in that type of system? Do they have the players to do it? I think they have the players that could be taught to do it. I think it's harder to play the Red Bulls style of pressing in a national team sense because you don't have as much time with the players. And the Red Bull style is built on repetition and time working. It's even better when you have your academies and your second team playing the same way, and you grow up in it, you do it, it's second nature. I don't think you can replicate that exactly. You can do a pressing style. You can do a defense-first style. You can do a not risking style. But the Red Bull style is a little different. So I don't think it would work with the national team. I don't know if Berhalter could do it. We just haven't seen him try to that degree. So I can't really speak to that one. But I think you'd waste Christian Pulisic in a system like that. I think you'd potentially waste a Weston McKennie in a system like that. You'd definitely waste an Andrew Carlton in a system like that. I think you have more talent than that. The Red Bulls, I think, went to the style because of a lack of talent and a lack of wanting to spend to get that talent is maybe the more important way to put it, as opposed to just saying they didn't have good players. Jarrett, do you think you could see a U.S. men's national team replicate the Red Bull style of pressing?
Possibly. I think you'd be more in line to get what Columbus did, where they press sometimes. Like where it's a club in your bag if you need it, but it's not your whole identity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you'd have to do. And you're going to have a few of those clubs in the bag. You're going to have to figure out, can you sit and counter? Can you go on the road in a game in Honduras where it's tough to have possession? Where do you want to have possession? Columbus is a team that's generally built up out of the back. Are you going to want to do that against teams that are going to press you? Or are going to chase you? Or do you want to do that on a bad field where a bad bounce, a bad hop might hurt you? These are things that come into play. I don't think you can have one defined way to play if you're the United States because you don't have the players that are world-class at every position to be able to do it. Spain could have that one way because they had some of the best talent in the world in that run. That's pretty rare. I think you're going to have to be flexible and maybe a little more flexible than we've seen Greg Berhalter. So I'm intrigued to see this play out. I just don't think a pressing style would work with what we have coming. Not the Red Bulls pressing style anyway. If you look at something else, like Jarrett said, where it's an option but not the number one option, maybe that's the way to play it. It's going to be fun to watch. We will be talking about it as we get ready for the Gold Cup, but we'll be talking about more of your questions in hour number 2 as we get into Overreaction Monday discussion. Stay with us. We will be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Umpolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back, Soccer Down Here, December 3rd, Overreaction Monday. We've got lots of reactions. You guys can judge if they're over or under or on par reactions. We'll get into those in hour number 2, starting right about now. John, where do you want to
go? Josh Eisenberg says, the biggest thing the coach finally being named will do for me is simply to start paying attention a little to friendlies. Now we will finally see who, quote, end quote, the coach is favoring.
Yeah, it's now you at least know. Like, you know, we talked about it going into those last friendlies. What are we looking for here? What's the deal? What do we know? And he didn't really know what to even look for. That's what was frustrating about it. Now, and you're only going to have maybe 3 or 4 friendlies between now and the Gold Cup. At least now we know it's building to something, and somebody is building something. So that's good. That's a start, I guess. I'll take that, Josh.
Then El Mataflo says, I'm not disappointed it's Berhalter. I'm disappointed with how the search was conducted. This whole process has left me a bit jaded in terms of how I view the USSF.
Yeah, oh man, yeah, it's hard to even argue that, to be honest. It's frustrating. The thing I will say is that I hope, now that there is a new president in place and he's gotten the World Cup here and he's gotten his general manager hired, maybe we'll start to see some changes. Maybe. I mean, I can't say yes or no. I hope. I'm hopeful. Sunil Gulati had been there for a long time, and I think he would pretty much run out of things to change. I think he was happy with the way things were because he had a lot of control and power. It's not going to happen now. I think Cordero is looking at it differently, and hopefully he will affect some change. Ernie Stewart has had success in his jobs as a sporting director. So can he have success here? Yeah, I think he can. Berhalter has had success as a manager. Can he have success here? I think he can. I wish there had been better communication during the process. I feel a little bit better now knowing that there was a process, and it seemed to make sense. I wish they had seriously looked at more people. I think going from 33 to 11 to 2 and only doing 2 interviews, you probably wasted an opportunity there. Even if you're not going to hire somebody other than your 2 finalists, just to talk to some people so they get to know you, you get to know them, because you never know. What happens if Berhalter doesn't work out? What happens if he has a bad Gold Cup and then is in a lot of trouble in the semifinal round of qualifying for 2022? What happens then? You don't really have anybody other than Oscar Pereja to turn to. What if he's winning titles in Tijuana and he has them playing in the Concacaf Champions League and doesn't want to leave? You're stuck. You didn't take the opportunity to network at a minimum. And Jarrett, I mean, we all know this. We know how important networking is in careers, period. The fact that U.S. Soccer did not take this opportunity to talk to 3, 4, 5 more people that, even if it's not for this hire, they might have needed down the road, I think they wasted an opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll be fascinated to see. I would love to be behind closed doors and fly on the wall to hear what some managers think about getting passed over for interviews. Is that something that sticks with people when they say, well, got passed over this time, maybe don't come looking our way next time. We might be might be less inclined to leave drop what we're doing and come interview and consider the U.S. national team, especially if things are going well where we're at. And it's not just Pareja, it could be other guys. But just the way, like I said, the way it was done, I'm fine with the hire. Just not fine with the way it was done, and especially not fine with the way it was, presented to the public, like it was some super secret grandmaster plan.
That last part is what I have a problem with. I think more than anything, now that we at least know there was a process, and it was a coherent process, the way it was presented is not good. And coming from a federation that has had problems with its outward communication to the public, this didn't help. That's something that Carlos Cordero has to take seriously in his role as president, and he has to change that. People should not feel like they can't trust the federation. And right now I feel like people do. That's not a good spot for the federation to be in.
How many people were ultimately turned off by this? That's what's going to be in my hip pocket.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, if you weren't interviewed, if your tires weren't even kicked as a part of this process, if you were interested and weren't even given a phone call or an email or anything like that, how many people who would have been interested in this job will be turned off in the future if it becomes open whenever, or any position inside the USSF becomes open?
One or two. Like, come on. Let's be real. I mean, Tata Martino would probably be one, because in 2-3 years, if things don't go well with Berhalter, Tata Martino's moved on to another job. I don't think he comes back. Okay. Peter Vermes, I don't know if he would have ever left Kansas City. I don't even know if you could put him in that boat. We don't know that. Anybody else? If U.S. Soccer comes calling and it's the right time for them in their career, they're going to take it. And it's not about any other jobs for it outside of Ernie Stewart's job. Like, any of the people that would have been considered for the national team job would not later take a U23 or U20 job. That part doesn't even play in here. I think it's a very, very small number that are turned off and would not take an interview or a conversation later. I mean, this happens in the world of soccer, happens in the world of sports, where you want a job, you're not going to get considered. You're cheesed off, but then if it comes open later, yeah, if you really want that job, you're going to take it. So I think it's probably Tata, and I think he was a long shot anyway. I think this was his window to take a U.S. men's national team job, and the window's closed. I wouldn't see that changing in 2-3 years, regardless of the way this process played out.
ATL from Tab Ramos about all this.
Yeah.
That's a different type of conversation. Now, you're talking Tab Ramos, you're talking about a U.S. soccer lifer. You're talking about a guy who's had great success with the U20s and getting to World Cups. It's not like Tab Ramos is going to go coach Mexico tomorrow. Now, Tab Ramos might go coach FC Dallas, but if he goes to FC Dallas and then in 2 years Berhalter's struggling and it's, oh, crap, we got to hit the eject button and go find somebody, hey, Tab, he's going to take it. He's going to take it. I mean, this is one of the greatest players ever for that team. This is a guy who spent a ton of time developing the talent that will be in that team at that time. Tab Ramos would not say no to a U.S. soccer job down the road. And it sounds like they've handled this a little bit better, just judging from some of Tab's comments here after the U20 success. He seems okay. So he still might take the FC Dallas job because that might be the next step for him. They could have told him, and he might have been right. and saying, look, Tab, we think you've done a great job with the U20s. You've never managed at the professional level before. We'd like to see you do that. The U.S. Soccer could be saying, hey, we think this is a good opportunity for you, Tab. Go take the Dallas job. I'd like to see what he could do at the club level.
ATL UTD fan number 1 says, I plan to support Greg 100%. It's not his fault the USSF waited this long. Whether you believe the process was flawed or whether there may have been a better choice, it's time to lend him and the USMNT our full-fledged support. Congrats, Greg. I hope you succeed and make us better.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you can be frustrated with the process and not wish ill will on Greg Berhalter and the men's national team. That's the last thing that the program needs at this point. That's not going to help anything. You can still ask for the process to be better next time. You can ask for better communication next time. But, yeah, now it is the time to get behind Berhalter, and hopefully he has all the resources he needs. Hopefully he has the support he needs without being blind support. I mean, the media needs to hold him accountable for the decisions he makes, whether it's in a call-up situation, tactically when you get into these games. I think the magnifying glass is going to be stronger because of how all this is played out. And it's just put more pressure on Berhalter. But, yeah, if you're part of U.S. Soccer and whether that's a fan, whether that's at the club level, whether that's at the youth level, whether that's at the media level, you should hope that he's successful. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And then the Colonel comes in this morning, and even though it is Tuesday Thoughts, according to the Colonel, he's a day ahead of the rest of us.
None of us know what day it is anymore. I'm with you, Colonel.
For me, matters not the language of USMNT coach, but should be a U.S. citizen. I want an American coaching. Americans would rather lose with a citizen than win with Tata. Atlanta United manager is an entirely different question. Grateful for Tata and trust Darren.
Let's work backwards. Managing an MLS club versus managing the U.S. men's national team, completely different things. I agree with that. They're completely different situations. I think the U.S. is in a unique spot where you could go either way and find success either way. I think if you are an Italy, a France, England, even though they did go in another direction, Spain, Germany, the heavyweights, I think it's much harder for them to go outside of their domestic manager pool. I think you're going to get more pushback. I think people are going to say, well, why do we need to do that? Because it's a legitimate question with the talent that they have in their manager pool. You have lesser countries that probably need to go outside of the domestic talent pool. We've seen Costa Rica do this. We've seen some of the lesser South American countries have done this. I mean, think back to the success Chile has had. First with Bielsa, Argentine, then Sampaoli, Argentine. Gareca at Peru, Argentine. So, Brazil, I think it's very hard for somebody to come in and manage Brazil if they're not Brazilian. Other countries, it's okay. The U.S. is kind of in between. I think you can go either way. I would not want to see them hire just because it's a U.S. citizen as opposed to a more talented manager that they could hire. There's probably a scale there that I don't know where it is. I don't know where my line is. But if they hired somebody just because they're a citizen and you obviously pass up somebody who is far more talented, I'm going to have a problem. Tata Martino, Greg Berhalter, that's not that situation to me. And that's not diminishing Tata. That's not giving Berhalter too much credit. They've both been in the league. They've both had success in the league. That's comparable. Now, Tata's had success outside the league. That's a different conversation. I don't think it is wrong to go hire Berhalter and not hire Tata. I would have liked to have seen a conversation with Tata Martino at a minimum to see if he would have been the right fit. I don't think it's just absolutely for sure he would have been the right fit. Why are you crazy for even talking to anybody else? No, not necessarily. But to not have the conversation, I have a problem with. Jarrett, what do you think? I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this.
As far as, American versus non-American manager?
Yeah, does it have to be an American manager? We've seen Jurgen Klinsmann. Before that, we saw Bora Milutinovic. Before that, in the early days, in the non-modern days, we saw it happen all the time. Do you feel like at this stage of U.S. soccer's development that it has to be an American citizen as manager?
It doesn't have to be for me. It helps because I think it helps to know the player pool, to know where a lot of guys are coming from in terms of, what they're used to seeing, what they may have grown up around. But it's a big plus, but it's not a deal breaker if it's the other way, if that makes sense.
No, that you said you took my rambling and put it in a much more explainable way. It's a big plus for it to be a citizen. It's not a deal breaker. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And El Mataflo comes back in and says he's not disappointed it's Berhalter. He's disappointed with how the search was conducted. The whole process left me a bit jaded in terms of how I view the USSF. I'm
disappointed with how the search was communicated more than anything. And that's what I would keep coming back to. Now that we know what the process was, it makes sense. You probably should have had 5 interviews. I mean, that's an arbitrary number. I'm just pulling a number out of the hat. I don't know who those 11 candidates were, but probably interviewing half of them would have been worth the time, and you might have learned something, and you might have built some connections for down the road. So I think that's probably my biggest issue with the process as we know how it was laid out in Tenorio's Athletic article. So I don't like how it was communicated because I think it led to lots of confusion. It led to lots of frustration, and now it's just put more pressure on Greg Berhalter. And I don't think he needed more pressure because it's already a pressure-packed job right now. This is a team that is no guarantee to win the Gold Cup next year, and a team that really needs to win the Gold Cup next year.
FC Waffle says, seeing how much the All-Star players enjoyed having Tata coach them, he would have done great.
I think he would have. I really do. I think he would have been just fine. I think that the language stuff was way overblown, as we've heard from Atlanta United players, as we've seen with Atlanta United. I mean, it's just, I think that stuff gets blown out of proportion when you're talking about soccer. And when you're talking about a player pool that would have a heavy Latino influence at this stage, as it should, because that's soccer in this country. I think he would have been just fine. I would have liked to have seen what he could have done in that role. We're never going to know. And the problem now, if the other side of the rumors are to be believed and Tata Martino goes to Mexico, well, you're going to have a lot of instant compare and contrast, aren't you? So, again, you talk about that pressure that has been ramped up. There you go. Because that's just going to make it even more. Because if you get into the Gold Cup and you have a final, kind of like we saw in 2011, where Bob Bradley lost his job when Mexico came back after falling down 2-0 and won 4-2, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some problems if you're Greg Berhalter if that happens. And you're going to get back to this point that U.S. Soccer wouldn't even interview Tata Martino, and he just went to Mexico and demolished you. That adds to another level of chaos and bad feeling. It's not good. It's just not a good spot all the way around. I don't know. I don't know if there would have been a way to avoid that if you had decided that Berhalter was going to be the guy even after the interview process. Sometimes that just happens. But with Tata not getting an interview after obviously making it clear he would have liked to have been considered, and he's continued to make that clear, it's not a great look. It's not a great feeling right now. And if Mexico does what they have done in the past and beats the U.S. in a big way, oh boy. The headlines, the takes, they will be spicy.
Spicy.
Let's take a break while we think about what those spicy takes could be. We'll get into more of your overreactions, and we also will have an announcement before the show is over about a really cool thing we're working on for you guys, thanks to one of our listeners, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So stay tuned. There's your tease. We'll be back in a minute.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
Had to be independent and take initiative, and that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, December 3rd edition. It's an overreaction Monday, less than a week away from MLS Cup 2018 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If you don't have tickets, you're probably going to want to get them one way or another very quickly. I believe some have reported this is sold out. I don't think it is officially a sellout. I'm assuming there are some tickets that will be released as we go this week. But yeah, good luck.
SeatGiant.com.
Yeah, SeatGiant.com.
It's not officially sellout, but we're basically in like SEC championship territory with soccer tickets in Atlanta, Georgia in the year 2018.
Yeah, absolutely. Ticket prices already at this point in the week on the secondary market are very close to what they were last year in Toronto for a 30,000-seat stadium. This is a little bit bigger stadium than that, and tickets are still in such a high demand. So that's pretty amazing. Stay tuned. We'll have lots of stuff about tickets and all that as we go this week, because that will be one of the storylines as we get closer to MLS Cup. There will be quite a few. A couple things from a programming standpoint to keep in mind. Tomorrow, stoppage time at Fido Irish Pub in Buckhead will be 2 hours, supersized, and it will be broadcast on 92.9 The Game, as well as Facebook.com/92.9 The Game. Dukes and Bell will be hanging out at Fido for 5 hours for their afternoon show ahead of us from 2 to 7, so you can get there early. You can hang out with Dukes and Bell. Then you can hang out with myself and Mike Conti and Jimmy Vance and Jillian Sakovic and Felipe Cardenas and an Atlanta United guest to be named later. We didn't trade anybody. It's just we're just waiting to see who it's going to be.
You didn't trade guests?
No, we did not trade guests. We're not trading Jillian or Felipe for a player to be named later or something. We're not in that situation. So 2 hours tomorrow, 7 to 9, will be on 92.9 The Game and Facebook.com, and you can come watch it, Fido. The day of, there will be lots of stuff all day long at all of your content sources. But what I know at this point is we will have a tailgate show with the faction from the Gulch probably around 1:30, maybe 2 o'clock, somewhere in that ballpark, very early. So if you're getting out there early, cool, come join us. If you're getting out there later, you can watch on twitter.com/soccerdownhere. And then we will have 92.9 The Game live from the Gulch. I'll be on with them at some point. And then our pregame show will start at 6 o'clock. 2 hour pregame, 2 hour postgame. all the takes, all the stuff from MLS Cup. It will be all over the place on Saturday and all week. It's going to be a busy week for everybody in soccer in Atlanta, and can't wait to really get it going. I believe the the media training sessions that media will be able to go to are Thursday and Friday. Thursday at the training ground, Friday at the stadium. You'll have media availability, so you'll have all your lead-up quotes and stuff ahead of that. You'll hear what Giovanni Savarese, Diego Valeri, Sebastian Blanco have to say. You'll hear what Tata Martino and Miguel Almiron and Joseph Martinez and Michael Parkhurst have to say. This is going to be Super Bowl level big. It's pretty exciting, and it's pretty cool to see MLS Cup in this type of environment where I feel like it should be and where I hope it continues to be down the road. Hopefully with Atlanta and quite a few of them. But anyway, it's going to be a fun week. John, before you have to go, because you have a big week coming up after
big week and a half
Cup. Yeah, you got a big week and a half, because the Georgia High School football playoff finals will be on Tuesday and Wednesday from the Benz after MLS Cup. And you have to talk and plan and do all those things. What are your thoughts as we get into the week? I mean, we're about to embark on the biggest week in Atlanta soccer history. Pretty sweet.
Yeah. And looking at our friends at SeatGiant.com after we mentioned it and discussing secondary ticket market, and you're seeing standing room going from north of $200. You're seeing lower level stuff starting at $400 in the 200s. It is, for me, it is the culmination of an entire season that was a moment of cool. And to see how the city showed up at Atlantic Station and watched the second leg in freezing conditions outdoors and just completely and totally hooted and hollered. And, you see what Atlanta United has done here in the Southeast. And to be at this last step of the season, playing in the last game of the year, for me, you sit there and you go, it's just, you just kind of you have your Jack Benny moment. And for the younger kids out there, use the Google machine, because there's usually an image that's associated with Jack Benny where he just puts his hand on his chin and he has this wry grin on his face. You just sit there and you just like, yeah, man, this is I'm just going to go ahead and say it's pretty damn cool. And to see how everything has just gotten to this point, and I cannot wait. Brad Nitz better fix this. And if they've got to rent the Russian weather machine to do it, they better do it. But to see how absolutely crazy Mercedes-Benz is going to be this weekend, I think that soccer has a lot to be proud of. I think soccer in the South has a lot to be proud of. And I think that Atlanta United and all of the supporters and the front office and everybody that has gotten to this point has a lot to be proud of.
You want something else kind of cool before you take off, even though you know a little bit about it?
Hit me.
All right. So everything's still coming together because it's been a little sudden, but we will be raffling off 2 tickets to the final on Saturday. Thanks to Andrew Baker, one of our awesome listeners from Germany. He bought tickets, hoped he would be able to come. The visa and all of that stuff has made it very difficult, and he is not going to be able to get here. So instead of just selling them at a fat profit, because he could have done this, one, he wanted to help us do something to benefit a great cause. So what we're going to do is we are going to raffle these tickets off as a fundraiser for Soccer in the Streets, with help from our friends, the Faction. So stay tuned to @SoccerDownHere for a chance to buy raffle tickets. All the proceeds from the raffle are going to benefit Soccer in the Streets and local Atlanta soccer programs. You will be benefiting programs on the ground in Atlanta for kids who would not have access to play otherwise. So this is like literal grassroots help. We're going to announce the winner at the end of the show on Thursday. That is the plan. We will announce the winner at the end of the show on Thursday. Everything will be posted maybe by the time we finish today. If not, it'll be early this afternoon in terms of how you can buy tickets. And we want to make this a big deal because it's a fundraiser. It's for the kids. So thank you, Andrew, first off, for thinking of us when this comes up and wanting to use all of our powers for good. So we will be doing that. Faction helping out in a huge way as well. Raffling off tickets to Saturday's game. And these are not just any tickets, by the way. These are 111 club seats. These are good tickets. These are really good tickets. So get ready to buy some raffle tickets, folks, and get ready to spread the word. All of you guys out there who listen, you being able to spread the word will be a big help, too. It'll help raise more money for the kids at Soccer in the Streets, and that's what we want to do with this. Thanks again, Andrew, man. We really appreciate it. All right. Let's get into more of the Overreaction Monday takes and questions and comments and such. Talking about tickets, Jarrett, this is one that we knew would come up. Michael Ruiz. I don't understand the take from Atlanta United fans that there should be more away tickets allotted to Timbers fans. We earn the right to host, and we should have as many home fans as possible. Can y'all explain that logic to me? I don't understand. You want to start, Jarrett, or you want me to?
You go ahead. You fall in this grenade for me.
Man,
I'll be there for the pieces.
All right. After we bring good news, then I will start with this one. Okay, look. Now, Terminus Legion is part of the Independent Supporters Council, which is all of the different supporters groups that are recognized around the league. So Terminus Legion signed on to a statement that I don't remember all of the groups, but fans from New York, from Kansas City, from Portland all signed on before the second leg of the finals, talking about the ticket allocations. There's talk about the international standard of 5%. I don't think that's any kind of code or law or rule or regulation. I think that is a recommendation. I think in most leagues where stadiums are roughly the same size, that's fine because you're talking about 100 tickets, give or take, either way when two opponents play each other. But let's be honest here in terms of ticket allocation. The original ticket allocation was 900 for Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Look, we know that every ticket's going to be sold. We know there's not going to be a problem selling tickets. 900 tickets is less than that 5%, obviously. It's 100 tickets less than what 5% at Providence Park would be this year. And that's something that does have to play into this, in my opinion. If the final was in Portland, there is no way Atlanta United fans would get 5% of Mercedes-Benz Stadium allocation, which is what? I think we did the math. $37.50, if I'm not mistaken, Jarrett. 5% of 75,000. Maybe he's getting.
Yeah, my degree's not in math.
It's something
like that.
Mine's
math extended into finance and economics, and this. I don't like basic math. I never got to use the quadratic equation the way my teachers told me I would. So, yeah, still bitter.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in thinking about it that way. I think when you look at the 5% allocation, you have to consider the size of the stadiums here. Yes, Portland is not hosting. Atlanta earned the right to host. But should Atlanta give Portland fans roughly 2,700 more tickets than they would have any hope of getting at Providence Park if the game was in Portland? I don't know if they should. 1,300 tickets is what has been allocated, and the Timbers Army sold them out because we know the Timbers Army will travel, and we know there will be more than 1,300 Timbers Army members in the stadium on Saturday, and that's great. How many times did Atlanta United fans sell out their allocation wherever they went? Orlando, I think, is a prime example, and bought other tickets and went to the game. I can tell you every time on the road, I see Atlanta United fans all over the stadium, not even just in the allocated section. Look, it's not easy, and this is something that MLS has to get better at setting aside. But I think asking for 5%, asking for 3,700 tickets, which they haven't said 3,700, they've said 5%, or they've said more than 1,300, which is what they ended up getting. I don't know if there's any real justification for it. Michael's question about why Atlanta United fans would think there should be more tickets for Timbers fans, this is a bit of a quid pro quo because of that. Look, Atlanta United fans are going to travel and buy tickets places, and they want as many tickets as possible when they go. But to me, is it fair for Portland's 5% to be just over 1,000 and Atlanta's 5% to be 3,700? And that's just how it should be. This is the Seattle-Portland conundrum that they've had for a number of years, where Portland can only offer a small number of away tickets to Seattle fans, but Seattle could take the tarp off a section and give Portland fans really whatever they want if they haven't sold the whole stadium out. Should Seattle do that? Why should they do that? It's complicated, Jared. I don't think there's just an easy yes-no to this. I think you do have to take stadium size into consideration.
I think there's a lot of bantering that can go back and forth on multiple fronts with this, but it's always going to be debated, and that's fine. That's what we do. We banter about it, and I guarantee you it'll be talked about in the week leading up. The week leading up. We are in the week leading up, in the days leading up, and even the days afterward. But it's something that MLS can address. I think this is one of those things where you might think, oh well, we didn't really have a contingency for that as a league. This is something we should address going forward, so this doesn't happen again. And, look at each stadium individually and say, here's where you need to set your minimum threshold at this stadium, at this stadium, at this stadium. But, I mean, I get it from the supporter section side of it, too, the quid pro quo, to say, hey, we want to set up a minimum for them so that when we go out there, we can represent our club out there equally.
Sure.
Or as the other end of the spectrum is Alexi Lawless jumping on Twitter and saying, yeah, if it was up to me, y'all wouldn't get a dime. Y'all wouldn't get a ticket. You'd buy your own. I'm going to turn my fortress into a fortress. That went over like a lead balloon, by the way.
And another thing, and Josh tweets and says, I think it was lame that we were offering less than New York had they won. Why not go with 5% of the average league attendance for the year? I don't know how much of that is Atlanta United offering. MLS is in control of ticketing here. So I don't think you can say that Atlanta offered less than the Red Bulls. MLS has the final say in how that's being allocated and how that's being done for MLS Cup. So I don't think it's that quite that simple, Josh. And again, if you're Atlanta United, how many tickets did Portland give to your fans when you went out there last year? Guarantee it wasn't 900. So this is MLS Cup. It is different, obviously. But I don't think Portland, I don't know if they could give you 1,300 tickets for MLS Cup at Providence Park right now. Maybe when it goes to 25,000, maybe, but not necessarily. So that's the other side of it to me is, could Portland actually match what Atlanta's doing right now in terms of these tickets? Stadium-wise, I'm not talking about the Portland Timbers versus Atlanta United. I'm talking about, is it realistic that you could have this many tickets given to away fans at Providence Park? I don't think it is. So that does factor into it. Just because you have a smaller stadium and can't give as many tickets, but you're playing somebody with a bigger stadium, why should you get more tickets? That's a valid question in my mind.
This is going to be, like I said, this is going to be debated for a while.
Oh, yeah. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm all for visiting teams coming here. This is something I think the league is going to have to step in on and step up to, and I think it would do them well to release something public. Maybe not even right now, but to release something public about this and clarify everything. And if not, do something right now. Kind of set a standard for the future to say, here's what it's going to be going forward. Here's what it is right now. We'll address it as it comes along, but put their foot down on this and let the league make the statement. I think in this case, so you're not getting this us versus them mentality with the Atlanta and Portland fans and the organizations. I'd like to have the league do something, make a public statement, so it doesn't turn into a civil war, so to speak, between the fan bases and blaming each other's front offices.
Agreed. And then creating situations where fans are wondering why other fans are advocating for the opposition's fans and that side of it. The league does need to step in here. This is MLS Cup where the league is controlling the ticketing. They need to set a policy. They need to set a standard, and they need to consider the differences in stadium sizes. That does have to factor in here. It can't be one thing for Atlanta or Seattle and another for Kansas City or Portland or somebody in a smaller venue. It can't be either or. It has to be consistent across the board. So let's see. Let's see if this comes up. Let's see if maybe Don Garber addresses it in the State of the League address this week. I hope it's a conversation that gets started, and I hope it's something that we can learn from and develop, because this is it's a good problem to have. It's a new problem to have, to be perfectly honest. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. One more question before we go to break from Tafka TLC. Will Concacaf Champions League matches be equivalent in price and demand to playoff MLS Cup tickets, do you think? I don't know. I'm fascinated by this, actually, because in other markets, CONCACAF has been a tougher sell for people because I think the media side of it does factor in. Here, I know we can tell the story effectively in Atlanta media, between the AJC, between 92.9 The Game, between mainstream media, who is all over everything with this team. It'll be a big deal. It'll be a bigger deal here than it has been in other MLS markets. Will it be on the same price demand? I don't think so, because it is different. I think it'll be more than Open Cup, maybe less than playoffs, if that makes sense. What do you think, Jarrett? How big is CONCACAF Champions League going to be here?
I think it's going to be a rolling price situation based on the opponent.
That's a big
same way. Go look at if you've ever seen Braves tickets. Braves are a good example here because you play 81 home games, 83 if you count, depending on the year, preseason. Look at the opponent, and the opponent can dictate the price point, that sort of thing. If it is a club from Honduras coming here, it's going to be a different price than if it's Tigres coming to play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That is the reality of it. People are going to see a certain team and go, well, hell yeah, we're doing that, or I can watch from home or the bar.
Yeah, I think the first round, the round of 16 against a lesser a Central American or Caribbean opponent will be less demand. I think if you draw Monterrey or Tigres, for sure those two, maybe to a lesser extent Santos Laguna or Toluca, if you draw them in the quarterfinal, it'll pick up in a big way. And if you get to a final, it'll be a big deal because it'll be a big opponent, whether it's another MLS opponent or if it's a Monterrey or Tigres. So it'll grow as the tournament goes on, but that first round of 16 might be a little tricky. It might feel a little more like an Open Cup type of demand, and I think as you go deeper into the tournament, it'll definitely increase. Let's take a quick break. We've got some follow-ups on some of the things we've discussed, and we've got more reactions from you guys. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and Shelter Pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Overreaction Monday, December 3rd, Soccer Down here. Jason Longshore, Jarrett Smith with you closing things out. Got a couple more segments to get into your reactions, whether they are over, under, on par. We have one from our buddy. Let me go back to find it. I lost it. Oh, there we go. El Mataflo was laughing about Cruz Azul, mentioning them as a heavyweight in Mexico. I mentioned them because they won the Concacaf Champions League in the last 5 years, I believe. Yeah, 2013, 2014. But he says Cruz Azul is the choke team in Mexico. They even have a verb dedicated to them. Cruz Azulear, to pull a Cruz Azul, a.k.a. choke. Santos Laguna is a consistent team, but they're right below the elite. Both Monterrey clubs, and that's Monterrey and Tigres, scare me and have hashtag mucha plata. They do. Monterrey and Tigres both are heavyweights. So this is going to be difficult when Atlanta faces up with either one of them. Santos and Toluca, I think, are a step below. But yeah, Monterrey and Tigres, that'll be a tough matchup.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's going to be a tough matchup. We went over it earlier. You're going to be playing on some fields that probably look like Passchendaele. Everything's going to be a tough matchup. Nothing is going to come easy in Champions League. Even if you go through it and you say, "Wow, they came through like 4-1, like they did against New York City FC," doesn't mean it was easy. The result might look easy, but none of those games are going to be easy, especially when you start balancing into the season. I mean, if you start looking ahead thinking, well, we got this team and that team and this team and that team from Mexico, well, you go get popped in the mouth by somebody from Honduras. Congratulations.
Yeah, pretty much. We've been asked for comments on a rumor that's out there. Doble Amarilla out of Argentina is talking about emissaries from Atlanta United are in Argentina talking to folks. It's a rumor. Doble Amarilla is one of those that, Jared, I feel like we've talked about reports from Doble Amarilla quite a bit, and they've been, 50-50 in terms of being legit? Am I being generous?
Maybe. Yeah. Just accurate enough that you have to give them the time of day, but not accurate enough that you have to take it to the bank.
Yeah, they're not in that upper tier of Argentine sources, so I do take this with a big grain of salt. They talk about top 3 targets to replace Tata Martino. Guillermo Barros Schelotto is one that has been talked about for a while. That's not exactly a shock. Jorge Sampaoli is another one that's been talked about a few times. Not really a shock there. And the other one is a name that we hadn't had linked yet, and we'll see, what could happen with this. But Gabriel Milito played at Barcelona as a player. He is managed at O'Higgins in Chile, Independiente in Argentina, and Estudiantes in Argentina. He was the one who brought Ezequiel Barco through to the first team with Independiente, made the big decision to bring him up from a deeper role in the secondary teams, not quite academy teams. It doesn't really translate the same way. But he was the one who made a big, bold decision to bring Barco up at a very young age, and that paid off for Independiente in a very big way, both with a trophy and in the checking account. So, interesting name to see linked. That's one that we hadn't seen before. I mean, thoughts on it? Schelotto and Sampaoli are two guys that, absolutely should be considered. Milito's a guy that is a younger guy. He's 38 years old. he's a guy that does make a lot of sense when you start looking into it and you start connecting the dots. Would he be a fit here? Yeah, all three, I think, fit the profile.
Yeah, all three would be fun. I think last saw the idea is that Atlanta will start really diving deep into this whole, we're going to start looking at the next manager as soon as the Cup is over. It's going to be a really busy offseason because, right after the Cup, win, lose, or draw, which I guess there's no draw here, win, lose, Atlanta's got to start making decisions on roster. They've got to start making decisions on who the next manager is going to be. And they have to do it very quickly because then they have to turn around and play Concacaf Champions League. And I think it helps to have some of these names that you're looking for, your emissaries are looking for, which, again, great word to use here, emissaries.
Yeah, I love it.
It's perfect. It helps to have guys who've coached down in, Libertadores, in Sudamericana, guys who've gone through cups, who know how to balance it out, and who have experience, win, lose, or draw in those cup situations. That's important, and we'll have to see how it goes in terms of which ones get questioned. And, if they come out of left field with this, who knows? They could decide, hey, we went in a separate direction. But just know that, as Carlos Bocanegra has said, when Tata leaves, the style doesn't leave. The style is ingrained in this team. So don't worry, you're not going to come in here and have a Claudio Mastroeni, winning 1-0 every time out or tying it 0.
The style is different than the formation too.
Pablo
that's something
Mastroeni,
that people,
Claudio Mastroeni. Don't know who he is.
Don't know. He might be in Serie C in Italy somewhere. The style is not the formation. The style is not the 3-5-2 or the 4-2-3-1. That's not what Carlos is talking about. It's the philosophy of playing good soccer, playing entertaining soccer, entertaining the fans, and playing a style that is fast and fluid. I mean, those are the two things that keep coming back to. That doesn't mean that's 100% either, because Thursday at Red Bull Arena was not fast or fluid. Didn't have to be. Thursday at Red Bull Arena was beautiful in a whole different way, and it was good soccer in a whole different way because it resulted in a trophy. So keep that in mind. But the philosophy of the club is not going to change going forward. And whoever is hired is going to have to fit into that culture of what Atlanta United is. That was something Darren told us on Stoppage Time Live when we had him on at Fido. Whoever's hired is going to have to fit into what Atlanta United is right now and add their own personality to it for sure. But they're going to have to support all of the things that Atlanta United is. And part of that is playing an entertaining style and entertaining its fans and being one with the fans. That's a big part of it. Let's take our final break. Let's come back and get to all of the over and under and on par reactions after this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment, Soccer Down here. Overreaction Monday of MLS Cup week. It's going to be a busy one, a very, very busy week. Hopefully see some of you guys out at Fido Irish Pub tomorrow night in Buckhead, 7 to 9, 2-hour show. Jillian Sakovits, Felipe Cardenas joining us. It'll be broadcast live on 92.9 The Game. It'll also be on Facebook Live, facebook.com/929 The Game. Before we get to Tuesday, let's try to finish off Overreaction Monday with your takes that we have not gotten to yet. Michael Ruiz followed up on the ticket conversation, said 5% of Providence Park is 1,057. They have received beyond that. Why should we give more? I do not agree at all with the 5% logic, nor should we give more than them. Why should we be penalized for being a good fan base that fills up our entire stadium? I know MLS is controlling ticketing, but if it were me, I wouldn't give the away team more than 500 tickets. This is something we earned, and we should have every right to have as much advantage as possible. Thanks for listening. I think 500 is too low. 1,300, which is what they've gotten, I think is a pretty good number. I think MLS needs to find a consistent allocation here. It should be consistent, and the teams in bigger stadiums should not be penalized and give more tickets to opposing fans than they would receive in the opposition stadium. I think you need to find that number somewhere between 1,500 and 1,000 that needs to be consistent for MLS Cup, and that's just what it is. I agree. I think Atlanta United fought and earned the opportunity to host MLS Cup. It should be filled with as many Atlanta United fans as possible because Arthur Blank invested in Atlanta United playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You shouldn't have to have more Portland fans in there than Atlanta fans would be in a different stadium because that it's smaller. It shouldn't be based on percentage, in my opinion. You can use the percentage as a guide to set the baseline, and the percentage should be based more off of the smaller stadiums, not the bigger stadiums, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. You might disagree. That's completely fine. I do think 500 is too low. So I would say somewhere between 1,500 and 1,000 is what it should be, and that should be it across the board. Every MLS Cup venue, that's what it should be. And you should know going in, and no complaints. That's what it should be.
Didn't I see somewhere that 5% was a FIFA guideline or something like that?
We talked about that. It's people have cited it as such. It's not a rule. It's not a regulation. It's not a law. It's something that is somewhere in a FIFA guideline, but it's obviously not always upheld because I didn't see any River Plate fans in the stadium at La Bombonera for the first leg of the Copa Libertadores final for specific reasons. In this scenario, there are specific reasons why it shouldn't be 5% across the board. Portland fans should not be able to buy more tickets at Mercedes-Benz than Atlanta fans would be able to buy at Providence Park. It should be a set number. Use the 5% as a guideline, but base it off of the average stadium size in the league or the mean or whatever number you come up with and set a number, and that's consistent across the board. And if that's hard for a Kansas City or a Portland to match, then you better come up with a number that they can handle. But Atlanta and Seattle and close to it, Toronto, should not be penalized because they have bigger stadiums and their owners invested in bigger stadiums. They shouldn't be penalized for that and have to sell more tickets to opposing fans. I just don't think that's fair either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm down with that completely.
Our friend Shiva says Atlanta City Council has named today Atlanta United Day. How cool is that? That's pretty sweet. I like it.
I think we should wait till after the final to do that, but okay.
They're not saying it based around the final, so I'm okay with it.
Aren't you supposed to wear your gear today or something?
I don't know.
Not that you shouldn't every day, but
exactly.
I think as a part of it being Atlanta United Day, I think you're supposed to support team kits and team colors. And friend of the show, host of All Things Considered on GPB Radio, Ricky Bevington, who is a founding member, made sure that she was not interviewing anyone important this week at all so she could wear kits 5 days this week.
She is an absolute super fan. It's pretty cool.
She crazy.
Shiva also asked, will any of the Concacaf Champions League games be played in Atlanta? They will be. The second leg of the round of 16 will be in Atlanta. The first leg will be at the venue of the Pot 2 team Atlanta is drawn against. So they will go on the road for the first game, and we don't know the calendar yet. Maybe that gets announced tonight. It's CONCACAF, so who knows? Throw your hands up in the air and wave them around like you just don't care. That's how CONCACAF makes decisions. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But first leg will be on the road. Second leg will be at home roughly last Wednesday in February. Last Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because it could be any of those 3 days, is what you're looking at. But roughly last midweek day in February is when Atlanta United would open their CONCACAF campaign at home. They will play the first game on the road. Just don't know where yet. And I don't think we're going to know at the end of the night if they do the draw the way I'm expecting, where we would know one of two slots we would be in. Either USA 1 if we win on Saturday, USA 4 if Portland wins, and we're in that aggregate record slot. We'll see what CONCACAF does. There's no telling. Andrew Baker asks, could a U.S. team in Pot 1 face Sporting Kansas City? They are probably the strongest team in Pot 2, and you wouldn't really want to face them in the first round. You can't. Teams from the same country can't face off in the round of 16. Now, can they face off in the quarterfinals and beyond? I'm not 100% sure about that. I think so. I haven't seen a rule saying they can't yet, but I know in the round of 16 they cannot. So the U.S. teams would not face Sporting Kansas City. Toronto could, because they are a Canadian team for this competition. It's not about the league, it's about the country of origin. So you could see Toronto and Sporting Kansas City, and I think that's a matchup neither one would want.
And we will have more information on this for Soccer Over There tonight, correct?
Yes, Soccer Over There, 6:30 is the start time. We'll get into the news from around the world of soccer. We'll talk about Copa Libertadores. We'll talk about Serie A. We'll talk about England, all the different stuff. 7 o'clock, we'll cover the CONCACAF Champions League draw live. It will be on Univision Deportes. I believe it's on CONCACAF's social media channels as well.
And Yahoo?
I believe Yahoo might be CONCACAF's streaming partner. I'm not 100% sure of that. It will be places. We'll be talking about it live as it happens from the Atlanta perspective and from the MLS perspective. So join us, 6:30 start time, 7 o'clock when the draw starts. That'll be on the SDH app, soccerdownhere.net, and Spreaker if you want to listen live.
And what else?
They're using Yahoo.
Yeah.
What's wrong? They couldn't get They couldn't get AskJeeves.com to do it.
CompuServe.
Yahoo is starting to spend some money on the soccer front. They have the great column every week from Doug McIntyre, formerly of ESPN, his 23 Thoughts, which is really good stuff. It's a must-read every week. So they're trying. They're working on it. I think Jeeves might be busy these days.
How did McIntyre come up with 23?
23 teams in the league, I'm guessing.
Okay. Kind of like Elliot Friedman and Friedge's 40 Thoughts that he has for the NHL every week.
That might have been where he got the idea. He mentioned it in the first one, like where the inspiration came from, and I think that might have been it. Nick Alifi is getting fired up on MLS Cup week. He says, to Portland, the reports of snow, to curses, to haters in general, I must quote the warrior poet Pastor Troy, I declare war. And I'm not going to yell it like Pastor Troy does because I don't have a cool backbeat behind me. It won't have as much effect. So Nick Alifi's declaring war, which is frightening. I'm a little concerned about Nick Alifi declaring war. Hopefully it goes okay. Nick, restrain yourself, sir.
Yeah, it's a long week. Pace yourself. It's all about carbs.
Yeah, something like that. Nathan Pugh, Overreaction Monday. I hope CONCACAF Champions League draw falls to where, if Atlanta advances to quarters, they would play a Mexican team. I would prefer to avoid an MLS side so that Atlanta can be more on display against different international opposition. I go back and forth on it. I want a matchup that Atlanta United should advance from in the quarters. I want to keep going in this tournament. So I don't want to see Monterrey or Tigres in the quarterfinals. Toluca or Santos Laguna, okay, I'll take it. If there's an upset in the first round, I'd love to get that team. If it's Houston, I'd love to see Houston in the quarterfinals. That's a matchup you feel like you can win. So I'm more about advancing than the display, because I think if you keep advancing, you will get those big matchups with the big Mexican teams. Just hopefully they're a little bit later in the tournament.
I'm actually looking forward to the draw, even though the USA 1 and USA 4 will be all we will know. I just want to see the layout. I want to see how Concacaf draw will be.
It's not that hard. I mean, it's 2 pots. You're not pulling into groups and having to put teams in certain slots and groups. It's literally pot 1 is playing pot 2. Done. Like, it's frozen about envelopes. As simple of a draw as it gets. Who knows? I don't know if there's frozen envelopes. If there's,
are they going to have the Voltron or Transformers thing that they had for the U.S. Open Cup draw?
That was the U.S. soccer thing. And remember, they weren't there when the draw got messed up. So I don't know if U.S. soccer. Well, that's a U.S. soccer thing. I don't know if CONCACAF subscribes to the GoBot theory. They might do something else. I don't know.
I, for one, welcome our GoBot overlords.
Hey, when they were in charge of the draw, we didn't have any problems. We didn't have any screw-ups like the whole Cincinnati, Minnesota hosting, not hosting situation. So
yes,
the GoBots were in charge. They did a good job. Speaking of being in charge, John Nason says, Howard Webb explaining that VAR takes 10 to 15 seconds, ARs keep their flags down until they don't, and fans at home not knowing what is being reviewed. Is the EPL ready for VAR? The BBC has a piece about it. I have a feeling they're going to be a little more organized than MLS has been with VAR. I hope so, because if they're not, oh boy.
Do we actually get to know who the AVARs are in the EPL?
I don't know if they're going to have an AVAR, because I would assume that they're going to do it in a centralized location. So you might not need that AVAR situation. That's what the other European leagues have done, and it works better that way. So hopefully that works. Speaking of VAR, it will be used in the knockout stages of this year's Champions League. Wasn't used in the group stage. It will be used in the knockout stages. Jarrett, do you think that is good, bad, and different to bring it in midstream in the competition?
I think that is hazardous to somebody's health.
Just in general, or because of the way they're bringing it in? Okay, yeah,
the way they're bringing it in as well, like where you're bringing it in. You know, you're parachuting into a hot zone.
Yeah, we're just going to start this now.
Yeah, we're going to turn this engine over halfway down the back stretch. Okay, cool. Good luck. I'm going to be over here in the infield, away from the fire. I'm okay with it in general, but man, I don't know.
Timing is not quite Timexian.
Timing here is CONCACAF is what it is.
There you go.
Yeah, there's that. Look, I get it in the sense that the knockout round is just completely different than the group stage. It's kind of a separate competition. It has a feel of that. So, okay. I don't think it's as big a deal like bringing it in that type, dropping it in there. I just wonder about how, okay, we know the Italian teams are used to it. We know the German teams are used to it. What happens with a English team when a big decision goes against Jurgen Klopp?
Oh. Well, the English fans are always known for their rational and calm reaction to everything. So.
Also that. Jurgen Klopp's also
as is
known
Klopp
for being
in a
rational.
derby.
And, yeah, we'll talk about this on Soccer Over There later. But, yeah, running out on the field, that he has been cited for that. That's probably not recommended. Not a good situation.
Yeah, he got FA'd. Yes.
Yeah, that's bad. Joey Logan shares some key matchups in the match, and we'll get into these as we go. We're just going to drop them in here. His 3 key matchups in the match are Darlington Nagbe, Diego Chara, Eric Remedi, Diego Valeri, Julian Gressel, Sebastian Blanco. He says if Atlanta limits the touches of these 3 players, most likely winning the game. He goes 2-1 Atlanta. I'm not going to go individual matchups as much right now. We'll talk about that later because I think both teams could look at moving pieces around. But identifying those 3 players for Portland, yeah, absolutely. Those are the 3 guys you got to worry about. Not easy to shut them down, though, because Chara you're not necessarily trying to shut down. He's your holding midfielder for Portland. He's the one who's going to break up your attacks and then start attacks. So you have to close him down when the ball turns over. Valeri and Blanco are the 2 you have to worry about, and they use them in so many different ways. It's not easy to just man-mark them. So I don't think it's going to be Remedi, Gressel, like man-marking, but you have to contain those 2 for sure. And you can't let Chara get forward and hurt you. Chara is going to hurt you from a defensive standpoint more than getting forward, but you don't want to make it easy for him. So we'll get into all that in the tactics as we go. This is, from a tactical perspective, maybe the MLS Cup I've looked forward to the most, because you got 2 guys in Martino and Savarese who are not married to one particular attacking setup, one particular defensive setup. They move things around. They're flexible tactically. They'll throw different looks at you. It's going to be fun because it's completely unpredictable coming in.
Bet365, for those of us who look at these kinds of things as exhibitions and not competitions, so please, as always, no wagering, or if you please do wager responsibly, has Atlanta United at minus 223 to win in regulation here on Monday.
We'll see how that changes as we go this week. I think you're going to see lots of fluctuation on it. I think there will be a lot of interest, though. I think this will be an MLS Cup that maybe gets the most interest of any MLS Cup in the history of the game. It's pretty cool. And the crowd will have something to do with it. The atmosphere in Atlanta will have something to do with it. All the storylines coming in. I mean, there's just a ton of different things that pop up in this match. Champions League draw tonight. We'll talk about it on Soccer Over There. You can listen to us. You can watch on Univision Deportes. You can also watch online CONCACAF Go and Yahoo Sports.
So watch with the sound down and listen to Soccer Over There.
There you go. And hopefully it doesn't get too complicated, weird. I mean, it's pot 1 and pot 2. It should be that simple. But I don't think we're going to know exactly who Atlanta United is facing yet. If they do the draw the way I'm expecting, I think we'll know the 2 opponents that it could be, and it'll be one or the other depending on the result on Saturday night. We'll be back with you at 6:30. Soccer Down Here app, soccerdownhere.net, and Spreaker. And we'll also share the link. The raffle for MLS Cup tickets is live now at the Faction website. We'll share that link here in just a second. You can have a chance to win some club seats for MLS Cup, thanks to Andrew Baker for being awesome. And you can help raise money for the kids at Soccer in the Streets and Metro Atlanta programs for at-risk kids. So we'll share that link here in just a bit. We'll be pushing that all week. We'll have a winner on Thursday. So if you're trying to get lucky and win some MLS Cup tickets, we have your hookup. We're not Scott Steiner either.
But wouldn't that make you Big Papa Pump?
No, I said we're not. I'm not telling anybody to holla if they hear me.
Well, they just have to hit you back.
No, we're not doing that. We're not Scott Steiner. But we are going to take a break for a few hours before we come back for Soccer.
I think we're done here.
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for listening. When you start referencing Scott Steiner, it's time to go. And we're going to go now. Thanks, everybody. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha Rick Steiner, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, Mucha Rex Steiner. Mucha MLS Cup, y'all.